Today we are going to learn how to create these awesome Neurodoodle designs, but we're going to look at some really cool variations and different ways of creating good compositions. So good composition is everything. Design is everywhere. It's in the restaurants that we visit. It influences our choices every day. It influences the things we buy. Humans are just drawn to good design.
I like designs that
So we're gonna look at how to repeat and vary just one simple shape to make something super fun. And then we are going to talk about different ways you can layer Neurodoodle right on top of these awesome compositions and how to layer color and use shape in order to create unity in a design that looks really cool. I've also created a slideshow to go along with this video. It's free and I will link that below, so make sure you check that out. It has lots of examples and step-by-step instructions, how to, what not to do. So let's get to it. I'll show you how to do them.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Okay, so the first step is to do your watercolor background. The trick to watercolor is water, using lots and lots of water and letting the paint colors kind of bleed into each other. You can use any color scheme, but you want to choose colors that are very similar, analogous colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, colors that will mix, like yellow and red will mix to make orange, blue and green will mix to make blue-green, and keep your color light. You don't want to brush your color around. Watercolor is transparent and you will never be able to get rid of your brush strokes, and you won't get that really cool bleeding effect. Another cool thing you can try if you don't have a good set of watercolors or just want to try something different, you can repurpose your old markers by dipping them in water and letting them soak overnight. So once you are finished, the next step is to create a unified design from one shape. We want to use the design principle repetition variation. We are repeating the same shape, but we're varying it. We're making the size slightly different. Or some of these circles have the centers cut out. And you're arranging them on your page so that your page has movement. You want your eye to bounce around. You can see that your eye has a tendency to kind of follow the edges of the design or the edges of the shapes. So once you're satisfied with your design and you feel like it has movement, it has an interesting focal point, in this case, those two little circles at the bottom, because they're slightly different grouped together, then you can go ahead and paste down your shape. You want to choose shapes, the color to be just slightly different, not too dark. You don't want your shapes to be too dark if you're going to be doing Neurodoodle right over the top. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to add the Neurodoodle on top of your composition to add depth, dimension, and just another layer to your design. So something to think about here is color. You can do your Neurodoodle lines in color. If you do choose to do it in a colored marker, I would choose a color that is very similar, but not too dark. You want it to be slightly darker than the shapes that you chose, the color of the shapes that you chose. So something like this would work really good. You want to pick something similar and not too different. Of course, you can always experiment with adding a completely different color, but just to be safe and make sure our designs are unified, for this step, we're kind of trying to stick with a similar color scheme. So slightly different. The theme here is definitely repetition and variations.
Out of repetition comes variation.
So we're repeating our color, yet we are varying it. So I'm using a slightly darker color blue, and I'm just kind of doing these like fun Neurodoodle designs over the top. If you want to learn more about getting into detail and like how to smooth out your lines and everything, you can just wait to the end of the video, and the next video will show you exactly how to do that. I will also link that in the description below. But here I'm just going to show you some options for those Neurodoodle designs. Black works great. You can go over and do your Neurodoodle right over it, pretty much any color, as long as you've kept this light with the black marker. So now one thing I want to point out, I love doing these videos because sometimes I try lots of different things before I do this with my classes and before I share it with you. And I really loved the way that when you add salt to watercolor, it gives you this really kind of cool splattery effect.
What? Oh my God!
But when I went and did the Neurodoodle on top and added the marker over the top, you can see that it was almost like kind of drawing on sandpaper, and it sort of like ripped up the tip of my marker a little bit, and it was definitely a lot harder to control. So although the effect is really cool, the rough texture that it leaves to the paper, I would not do that with my classes.
You better not.
Okay, so the black Neurodoodle works really well. Another cool thing you can do is work in a color, kind of like what I just showed you with the blue. Pick a color that's slightly darker and do your Neurodoodle right over the top. And then here, I simply outlined that and made kind of like a really cool shape out of those Neurodoodle lines. It almost looks like a web kind of laying on top. And I thought that was really fun. And then I outlined it with the black. And I also ended up outlining the shapes with the black. That's not something you have to do. Here's where you get to like really be intuitive and creative and sort of have fun with it. But you just want to make sure you have enough contrast so that your designs kind of stand out. So I kind of did the same thing with this one. I really love the way this one turned out.
Turns out I love her.
Instead of doing like just random Neurodoodle here, I traced some circles and kind of overlapped them and then united them with more like Neurodoodle lines. So you could see that the original shapes are kind of connected with the black marker, and it kind of merges the two together. You can still see like the layering where the darker values, these darker lines kind of feel like they're in front. And then the next level of darkness looks like it kind of goes to the next layer. And then this looks like the back layer. So by changing the value or the darkness or lightness of the color, we are able to get that kind of depth and dimension. This is another technique that I kind of messed around with and played with. I first did the Neurodoodle, like a random Neurodoodle pattern with a slightly darker marker. I didn't go like to a super dark green, and I stuck with the color scheme that was in the image and then layered the black Neurodoodle over the top. For me, this design feels a little bit too busy, so this wasn't my favorite variation. I think my favorite variation was definitely these three. I thought these three looked really, really awesome.
So much more than awesome.
Awesome. So if I did this with my students, again, I would definitely either go with just, or give them the option of just the black lines over the top to create that depth, or to use a darker color and then merge the two together with the black outline. These designs look really awesome by themselves. If you're gonna do it on its own, I would probably choose two different colors that are contrasting to make the shapes kind of stand out more. I also did a video last week where I cut out the shapes from an actual like Neurodoodle practice, and that looked super cool too. So if you're interested in checking that out, I will also link that below. So don't forget to download your free slideshow. The next video showing you how to do the Neurodoodle is going to play right after. Thank you so much.